Communications Director of the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky and chair of the Speakers Committee, and she's also an incoming board director. Ashley?
Thank you, President Julie. It is my honor to introduce Susan Elkington this morning. I met Susan several years ago and have been nothing but impressed by her leadership, intelligence, and passion, as much for engaging her team members, supporting the community, and helping the next generation be successful. That's one of the amazing things about Susan and Toyota. The company's mission is to make society better. It's not just about making vehicles, but about making a positive impact in the community. Here in Kentucky, Toyota has invested more than $141 million, and not just in donations, but also in time and talent as well. As president of Toyota Kentucky, Susan oversees Toyota's largest production facility worldwide, an $8 billion operation that employs more than 10,000 people. It can produce 550,000 vehicles and more than 600,000 engines every year. This year marks 35 years since Toyota broke ground on the facility in Georgetown. And back in March, TMMK rolled its 13 millionth vehicle off the line, and it is poised to produce its 13 millionth engine this year. Prior to her work at the Kentucky plant, Susan served as general manager of the production control division at Toyota's global headquarters in Japan. There, she supported Toyota's 53 manufacturing plants worldwide. She began with Toyota in 1998 in Princeton, Indiana, where she worked her way up from assembly engineering specialist to manufacturing vice president in 2013. Susan serves on the boards for many organizations, including the Pritchard Committee, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, and she is a trustee for the University of Evansville. Last fall, Automotive News named her one of the leading 100 women in the North American auto industry. She's also an inaugural inductee into the Women in Manufacturing Hall of Fame, is a Step Ahead honoree, and an Athena of Southwest Indiana Award finalist. Susan earned her mechanical engineering degree from the University of Evansville. Please welcome Susan Elkington.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me today? Thank you so much, Ashley. I really appreciate the opportunity to join the Louisville Rotary today to share some updates and some insight on what's happening here at Toyota Kentucky. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person. It sounds great that you're going to be able to do that next month, which is really great to be able to see things getting a little bit back to normal. Great introduction, Ashley. So I am not going to give a lot about my background, but there is something that I do want to share a little bit about. How did I ever get my career started? You know, many people ask me, how did you get into engineering? And the answer that I give is I got into engineering because I played with dolls. And most people are like, what? Not maybe the answer you expected, but you know, as a child, I lived in rural Indiana, and I like to play with dolls. But really what got me into engineering is the fact that it wasn't the dolls, but it was building the doll houses and the doll furniture, because I stole my brother's Lego blocks, and then figuring out how to make better houses and better furniture for those dolls. And it really was when I got to high school that a teacher in my small school that saw that I was inquisitive and had an interest and decided that, you know, maybe engineering would be good for me. And so he came and talked to me and said, hey, did you ever consider becoming an engineer? And I had no idea what an engineer did. In fact, when I went home to tell my parents that this is what I decided I was going to do, my dad's response was, so why do you want to drive a train? So being the very first in my family to go off to college and to becoming an engineer without even knowing what an engineer was a leap of faith. But it is really what got me started. And today, with my career that has taken me from engineering to maintenance to production to my 3-year assignment in supply chain in Japan, my best day is still spent on the manufacturing floor at Toyota, where I get to problem solve, collaborate, and find better ways to create something amazing with our team here in Kentucky. You know, it's this passion for my work and the commitment that I feel towards our team that has kept me motivated to do my very best job. And I think all of us here can recognize the various challenges that we have faced over the past year. And I have relied on that passion and that commitment to get me through those tough days and weeks on even more than a couple of occasions. Our industry, like others, have to grapple with the challenges of the pandemic, including halting production at our plant for several weeks until we develop a better understanding of the virus and how to best protect our team. However, I am so proud of the way our team responded to these challenges and continue to face. I am also proud of the fact that we maintain our employment of every one of our team members during this time. And as a local and regional team, we came together to completely rethink how we work on a day in and day out basis. We implemented over 100 new protocols to make certain that our team members and their families could stay safe. We have over 12,000 people entering this site every day. So that was not a small task. We did not stop with our first set of protocols. We continued to find better ways, including providing to every person on site weekly saliva-based PCR testing through a partnership with Shield, whose test was developed through the University of Illinois, and then providing vaccinations on site in participation with the University of Kentucky and Wild Health for every person that comes on site. But perhaps what I'm most proud of is the way our team continued to come together, even in the most challenging of times, to serve our community. It is the best of Toyota spirit that we were able to provide protective personal equipment and other supplies to those on the front line. The team, led by our Toyota Production Engineering and Manufacturing Center that's located here in Georgetown, spearheaded an effort to produce over 500,000 face shields for medical personnel, many of which were delivered to workers here in Central Kentucky. This is the heart of our team members, which has the impact beyond Toyota's financial donations, giving to across the bluegrass. It is our passion to serve others and to find better ways that guides us through these times, making us stronger when we reach that other side. And that is Toyota and has been Toyota Kentucky for the last 35 years. Can you believe it's been 35 years since Governor Collins stood in the empty, field here in Scott County and chose and announced that Toyota chose Georgetown, Kentucky as the site for its first plant in the United States. Since becoming president of TMK in 2018, many people have told me how they felt when the announcement was made. The enthusiasm and the optimism for what it brings for such a large company to come to the bluegrass, what it meant for the Commonwealth, but for so many families through the region, they were hopeful. And today, 35 years later, I believe there's so many reasons to continue to be excited and hopeful in our industry and for what we're doing at Toyota Kentucky. Many of our products continue to lead the categories for sales and quality. Last year, Toyota Camry was once again the best-selling car in the United States. Best-selling for 19 years in a row. And we expect that's going to be 20. And this year, we will produce our 10th millionth Camry here at this site. We also continue to lead manufacturers in alternative powertrain vehicle sales, including hybrids, electric vehicles, and fuel cells. Last year marked our 21st year to hold that title. The journey to alternative powertrain vehicles began in 1997 when Toyota introduced the first generation all-electric RAV4 EV, followed by the new iconic Prius, the gas electric hybrid. And most people don't recognize that we actually had an EV before we actually had our hybrid. Since then, Toyota has adapted hybrid electric powertrains to vehicles of all shapes and sizes. We currently now have 17 electrified products in our company US lineup. Over the years, Toyota's hybrid models have saved over 139 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide and 76 million here in the United States. Toyota Kentucky is proud to be part of those efforts, producing hybrid powertrains here at our engine plant, and then also in all of our vehicles, the Camry, the Avalon, the Lexus ES, and last year, we added the highly popular RAV4 hybrid to our production. Currently, our production is about 30% hybrid, and that continues to grow every year. And we expect future powertrains in the future. And as we continue to build these high quality vehicles, these consumers have come to expect, we're also talking about the Toyota way, challenging a continuous improvement to heart. As some of you are aware, Toyota is in the midst of our own transformation from an automobile company to a mobility company. Now you might be thinking, what's a mobility company? What does that mean? Well, for Toyota, that means mobility goes beyond cars, trucks, and SUVs. It's about being a service with universal, inclusive, and accessible mobility solutions, providing to the greatest number of options to the greatest number of people. So what does that look like? So imagine that you were physically limited. What would you need in your home? to go and see the doctor, to get basic needs, let alone find ways to experience life. As a company, we are pioneering research in artificial intelligence, advanced materials, human support devices, and physical rehabilitation. Develop robots can assist elderly, physically disabled, and those that are injured. Not only is it the mission and vision of a mobility company transforming our planning and long-term range thinking, but it's also capturing the hearts and minds of our team members. In fact, our team is actively identifying mobility needs through our community and then using their Toyota know-how and unique skills to do something about it. And I'd like to show you an example.
Avery has spina bifida, but that is not what defines her. I feel like if she gets to play and experience and have fun without me being right there, that it's going to bleed over into other parts of her life.
It's not just about cars or trucks anymore. Toyota's really transformed into a mobility company. And for Go Baby Go, for the families, it's about movement also. So that the babies, they can move around their environment and they can see their environment in a way that they've never seen previously.
Go Baby Go started when families found some of my work in mobile robot and basically demanded that I change fields and create an affordable DIY style technology that could be available today to allow young kids from 6 months to 5 or 6 years old to be mobile.
One of the pillars of the Toyota way is respect for people. I shared this with our senior leadership, and I think it took them about 10 minutes to decide that we were going to do this.
As a person who has a child that can't do things that other kids can do, you can feel very left out and very isolated.
We got turned on to helping Go Baby Go because we were going to take their designs and help produce them at a larger scale and help them reach more people. We actually had the chance to teach Go Baby Go volunteers how to create work instruction sheets. Every step of the modification of these toy tundras is explained very visually, very clearly. So we were able to take a group of volunteers with no prior understanding of large-scale production and bring some of our Toyota production system tools to the modification of these electric ride-on toys.
I think that the most important thing, especially with rocking kids that aren't typically developing, is that just because they're not able to interact and engage with you like a typical child doesn't mean that they don't understand certain things or that they don't want to belong to the greater group.
When you see a kid become mobile in a Tundra for the first time, be able to drive across the grass and have people run to them, it's immediately humanizing. You feel it in your heart and in your brain because mobility is a human right.
So mobility truly is a human right. And that belief is poured into everything that we're doing, from projects like Go Baby Go to investments in our community and throughout our operations. Of course, achieving this mobility future will not be easy. And as I mentioned to you earlier, our plant is 35 years old, the oldest plant in North America, but over half our workforce has been with the company less than 10 years. And we're preparing for more and more of our team members to continue to retire. The manufacturing industry is in desperate need for new and well-trained talent to fill the gap, and that's being left in our workforce. And to be competitive in a local and state and global economy, investment in high quality education is an absolute must. Of course, as many of you will agree, collaboration between industry, educational institutions, nonprofits, and government agencies is so critical to creating sustainable solutions for our workforce challenges. And to be clear, when I say investment, I am not referring to funding alone, but also the knowledge, your influence, and your company community relations and your time. It's not only necessary for our industry and our state, it's personal to me. For I know I would not be where I am today if I did not have access and the encouragement to obtain a quality education. That is why I'm proud of Toyota's involvement and commitment to projects like Project Lead the Way. Project Lead the Way is a nonprofit that has transformed the learning experience for pre-K to K-12, grade 12 students and teachers across the United States. The program empowers students to develop in-demand transferable knowledge and skills through the pathway of STEM education. In 2017, Toyota Foundation provided $2 million in grants to Project Lead the Way for 115 schools across the US, and 11 of them here in Central Kentucky. And then in 2018, Harrison County Schools created the Nationals models for career pathways stretching from pre-K to post-secondary schools. And this model is highly applauded by the Manufacturing Institute and is the benchmark for education and initiative across the country. I'm also proud of the investment that we are making in Jobs for American Graduates, otherwise known as JAG, supporting young people of great promise who face significant challenges to achieve academic and economic success. The nationally recognized Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education program, also known as FAME, started here in Kentucky and combines classroom learning and paid on-the-job training in technical trades. Now, these programs, we are ensuring that students are not only equipped to succeed in manufacturing careers, but also placing them in a talent pipeline, connecting them to employers and the need of these high skill and unique trainings. These are just a few examples of how our industry can team up with education to have a transformational impact. The impact will not only improve career options and outcomes for students, but it will also have a ripple effect across the state for generations to come. Before I close, I also want to briefly mention another initiative our team at Team Kentucky recently announced, and it goes straight to the core of building a strong talent pipeline. Women and minorities are dramatically underrepresented in manufacturing and engineering career fields. This is true for Toyota Kentucky, but also for many other companies and industries, and this must change. So that is why we have partnered over the next 5 years with our friends at the University of Louisville, the University of Kentucky, and the Bluegrass Community and Technical College to increase access to engineering degrees for minority students. The $1.7 million investment will provide full tuition scholarships for 35 students. These students will also be mentored by Toyota engineers and participate in paid co-op opportunities within our company. It is our hope that programs like this will help ensure that we are developing the engineering workforce for the future that represents our community and our country. One that will fill the diverse perspectives and experience necessary to help us reach our full potential as we go for the future of mobility, and for us as a state to achieve what we can do as a state. I know that's a lot. And many people say, well, it's great for large companies like Toyota, but what can small companies do or individuals? Remember, I said, it's also about your time, your influence, your connections, be it through grassroots activities like the Pritchard Committee, partnering with local schools, being a mentor, sponsoring a teacher, providing inspiration, and being a voice. We can make these things possible for our future generations here in Kentucky. Now, creating a world where movement is possible for everyone, whether across the room or across the town or across the country. A place where mobility is a human right. That's our ultimate goal, but we can't do it without our people. Making that a reality really must focus every day at Toyota. And what excites me most about the next 35 years of manufacturing at Toyota here in Kentucky, because we will be part of that future. So I want to thank you for your time. And now I will open it up for any questions.
Susan, thank you so very much for being with us and for your presentation and remarks. When you talk about the 35 years, a lot of us on this call, we remember it so clearly. And I happened to work at the Kentucky Chamber at the time, and it was the most amazing thing in the world for Toyota to come and how it's changed not only Central Kentucky, but also throughout the state with, the manufacturers that support Toyota that invest in employ thousands of people as well. And also you're signaling how important education is. You all have been a real strong proponent of that all along, and you continue to be with your investments and all the great work you're doing. So just want to thank you so very much for your leadership and all that you're doing at Toyota as well. Our club here is very interested in education and focus on many of the areas that you touched on. So you have really ignited our interest as well. So thank you for that. And Rotarians, please put in your questions because we'd love the opportunity to ask Susan. And I have first one, excuse me, that Rotarian Graham Donovan asked. And he wanted to ask a little bit more about Toyota's proposals to provide electric power from solar arrays and the size and the progress. And maybe if you can touch a little bit more about that electronic future that's coming.
Yeah, so we do. We actually have made announcements across several of our states, and here in Kentucky is one of those that we are partnering. We are going through all the formal approval processes to be able to have a solar panel field be put in over in Eastern Kentucky that will help provide power, about 25% of our power here at our facility. So we are continuing to make progress. We expect that to continue on. And I apologize, I don't have the exact dates with me, but I do think, one of the things is that as our facility, we want to continue to be a leader in our manufacturing process. So I think that's one option. We also have where we use the natural gas that comes out of our waste sites with the disposal site here in Kentucky, in Scott County, where we actually use the methane gas from the landfills. And we are able to actually also use that and transfer that to energy. And then our next big, I want to be a little out there, and it hasn't got approval yet, but I'm hoping to get our next big phase. We'll be getting into our fuel cells and hydrogen and how we can utilize that here on our site with our manufacturing. But, we sort of have we have, of course, we want to reduce. And that's a huge one for us as we're changing our manufacturing processes. How do we use less water? How do we use less electricity? That's our number one goal, is how do we do that? Then the second phase is that how do we find cleaner ways? Because our goal is that we will be carbon neutral as a complete company by 2050, and that includes every one of our manufacturing sites. And so that's a lot of work that has to be done. But Toyota Kentucky will be one of I think one of the first that you'll see in North America leading the way.
Great, that's really exciting. Jan, could you unmute and ask your question, please? Jan Grayson? I don't know that he's had an opportunity to do that, so I'll go ahead.
Right.
There he is. Go ahead.
Susan, I was just wondering, I'm familiar with the Japanese culture. It's usually very male-centric. And for you to get to this level of success, it must have been a very challenging path. I wondered how you addressed that as you moved up the ranks.
No, I think as anyone that's going into a career path where you're not the majority, there's always challenges. And, of course, my mentors were great. When it comes, especially when I went to Japan, actually, it was a lot of inquisitiveness, right? Because in their culture, they don't see women in these positions. So they're inquisitive. Well, how do you do that? And they just if you've never seen it, you can't believe it or you can't be it. And so I spent a lot of time both with the female workers in Japan to talk about, how my career was and how to do things. But I spent just as much time with the male leaders talking about what do you have to change in order to make the workplace and to where you imagine these females being in these leadership positions. And I think one of the key items that we talked about, I used to joke with them. I said, as a counterpart, I said, one of the best things that you can do if you want your females in your organizations to become great leaders is for you to be a great husband. And they laughed, and I said, because many times what you're looking at is that you're looking at your females working and you want them to do 3 jobs. You want them to be the mother and the wife at home doing everything at home. And then you want them to come here and do the same job that you're doing every single day. I said, do you think you can live up to that expectation? And so I joke and I said, and you set a good example. And when you are showing that you are a good husband, you're showing a good example of what it means to be a partner. And that's, and as they do those things and make change, then the female workers will, also see that you're really sincere in making change. And so I think, globally wise, no matter what the culture is, there's change that people are recognizing that to have the best products and to really make change in our society, you have to have diversity of thought and you have to have diversity in your workforce to really, truly succeed.
That's awesome. Chambers, can you unmute, please?
Sure. Hi. I don't know if you can hear me, but I was just wondering if you're still offering tours to the public as you were at one point, or if that's stopped because of the COVID crisis.
We did put a pause on our tours. However, we have been revamping them during this time. So we will be opening up later. The expectation is later on this year, we'll be opening up to our tours. And our first focus will be on our students and really getting them engaged in manufacturing. And then we'll open it up to the remaining public.
Cool. Those are very cool. So that's great. Thanks.
Larry Sloan.
Yeah, first of all, I can vouch for the tours. I took grandchildren a tour of a Toyota plant about 2015, and it was a wonderful experience for them. And they really could see what an actual manufacturing, where these cars are rolling off the line every few minutes. It's pretty amazing to see how everybody does it. It's a great tour, and you don't have to walk at all. You were carried around on a shuttle bus or whatever you call those. But my question is this: paratransit is something that I'm interested in, and I'm on the TAC, which is the TARC Accessibility Advisory Council. And paratransit there are a lot of places that are making new types of vehicles for paratransit that allow disabled people to ride, and they're different than the typical vehicle we see nowadays. And I wondered if that's something Toyota itself is getting involved in. And the other issue that we see with paratransit right now is there's a shortage of drivers, just like there's a shortage of drivers for Domino's Pizza. There's a shortage of drivers now for fixed route and paratransit buses. So if you can comment on that, I'd appreciate that.
You have a lot of information there. So, we don't, here in North America, we don't necessarily produce buses. Toyota does have in its whole portfolio from that standpoint. However, one of the key areas where we have partnered and our engineers are very in tune on is in our Sienna and our minivan. And so we don't actually produce fully at our plant, but what we do is that we build a version of it that makes it very easy for our partner company to modify and to allow that easy access. And that's part of the chief engineer when he's designing the model. He makes certain that that's a portion of the design to allow that to happen. So that those are things that we are considering and continuing to work on. And in addition, of course, we continue to support the access. We want to help support access. As we talk about mobility, if you imagine, we want to have the assistance of the robots in the home, but then also, if you have to go to the doctor, how do you have autonomously or what other means a vehicle that's there that can actually get you to where you need to go. So those are our longer term visions that we're working towards. And then we have to do it step by step.
Alice, could you unmute, please? Alice Bridges?
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for being here today. I wanted to ask how you talked about how important your workforce is. How do you see automation and AI impacting your workforce? And then my editorial comment is my Toyota Prius is the best car I've ever had.
Thank you, Alice. Automation, how are we seeing automation and AI? It's changing the way we're doing our work, but it's taking away that tedious part of the work or the most difficult part of the work. So for example, we have what's called collaborative robots, and they're actually robots that can work in the space of our team members. They don't have to be separated with, safety fences and things like that, because the speed that they use and plus the force, the ability to stop them. And what we're using these for is in areas where the work is very difficult for the worker. Like they would have to hold their hands above their head and hold this heavy tool and tighten. Those jobs are difficult to do. So those are their first jobs that we're really working to try to automate, is how do you make work easy? And the progress that's happened over the last 30 years, probably the biggest portion where we've seen that is in body weld, in our welding operation. So there used to be very large welding guns, and now basically 99% of the welds are done with robots. But now our workforce is having to shift, and they're the ones teaching the robots. They're the ones having to maintain the robots. And many of the ones that are doing these work are not, some specialized degrees. They're production team members that have learned and been trained along the way. And so that's why these programs like the FAME program or AMT program and these other programs are so important, because it helps teach those things. And then from an AI standpoint, it is unbelievable the capabilities that we have in doing that. So another area that we use automation a lot is in our inspections, because people make mistakes, but with automation you can reduce that. And so we have this machine learning, and so every time the vehicle changes, it can adjust and say, is this 90% right? Is it wrong? And then a person can come in and say, yeah, you're right. And it just really reduces the amount of time that it takes to be able to teach the machines. And then where we really are going into the next phase is for our training of our workforce and using this virtual scene. So like if you have a new vehicle that's coming in and you don't actually physically have the parts of the equipment yet, you can use virtual 3D augmentation and be able to do the training without having everything there. So this technology is transforming our workforce, but it's not necessarily reducing the workforce. It's just shifting what they're doing. But it also means we need a higher skill than maybe what we had in the past.
Wow. Ken Grossman.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Susan, for your time speaking to us and your leadership. My question is, I was watching the news last night, and there was a story on the semiconductor chip shortage and how it's impacted the Ford plant here in Louisville. Layoffs of for 6 weeks, and the hardship it's caused the employees. And I wonder how the chip shortage is impacting Toyota in general, and more specifically, Toyota Kentucky.
Very good question. It is a common question we get. The supply chain has been very stressed. And I think everybody who's ever tried to buy anything right now, be it a piece of furniture or getting a house built or anything else, it's very hard. And the same thing is happening in the automotive industry. Now, Toyota has been less impacted than a lot of the other major makers. And there's a couple of reasons to that. One is our ability and our you would think just in time that would actually make it worse. But we, back in the early 2000s, we had this tsunami that happened in Japan. You guys probably may remember that, right? And it took out some of our plants, and it also impacted our electronic supply. In that time period, we never let a crisis go to waste. We looked at how we have our supply chain and how we manage it and how we have visibility of our full supply chain. And that has allowed us to be able to make adaptations, both in some product, we've had to make some product changes and shifting, but then also how do we provide supply of the microchips. So with that, we've seen less interruption. Our truck plant in Texas did have some interruptions early on. Our facility here in Kentucky has had minimal impact. We've had to make some shift in our production mix, but our ability to continue to produce, we don't see that it's going to actually interrupt our production. But it does impact our ability to really meet the demand that is out there by the consumer. If you go to any dealer right now, stock is very, very low. So we can't increase our production volume to really meet that customer demand that's out there, just due to the supply chain in general. But the condition is a little bit different around the world. Toyota makes priorities and shifts in products and models from that standpoint. But definitely, we've been able to maybe weather the storm a little bit smoother than some of the other makers.
Very interesting. Ashley, if you would ask your question, please.
Susan, thanks for being here today. I've always been impressed with Toyota's investment in education, even from prenatal all the way through life, for that matter. And I was just wondering, the Project Lead the Way program in Harrison County is amazing. I know you guys do so much more work throughout the state. Wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the investment in STEM-focused programs and developing the workforce pipeline.
Yeah, so for manufacturing, both in the fact that we have this large facility here, but also we have our production engineering workforce here. So we have about 800 people that work in our engineering plant, our engineering headquarters that's located here in Georgetown, on top of our, employment over here of over 10,000 at the plant. So that's very large numbers. And many people want to live where they grew up and where they were, and so it's so important for us to be the leaders. We need to have that skill set, and we feel that it isn't just one phase approach. You can't just go in at the college level and say, hey, I want to invest in college. You have to get students interested in that, and it starts at such a young age. We have seen through study after study how girls get out of these fields because before middle school, because they don't see other people like them, and they don't see it as a fit for them. And so that is why we see it so important that we start at such a young age to be able to have these programs. I want to give an example of the Project Lead the Way. I was able to go visit Harrison County schools and see the kindergarten class. Actually, yeah, the kindergarten. No, it's the first grade. I'm sorry, I'm going to switch on you. First grade class. And in that class, these students were talking about how sound waves work. And they were using the tuning forks and hitting the tuning forks and seeing this and then doing different things to be able to change sound and change the waves and how it goes in water. Because at the end of their class, these first graders were going to solve, how do you transmit sound and message from a spaceship that is lost in space? And so that was their problem they had to solve, but they had to learn all these things in order to do it. It's amazing. And that inquisitiveness is what keeps our students engaged to want to go and advance on, because it's not necessarily that you need to know what an engineer is. You need to have that inquisitiveness and that skill set to be able to do. So we are going to continue to work on that. But the other part of it is that we see in the state of Kentucky and across the country that there is such disparity between the students that have, the parents that have, and the students that are, their life is just rough. And so how do we help expose those opportunities and help provide that education so that they can see a better way, and they can change not just their lives, but the lives of their generations, their families to come. And so that's why it's important for us, especially for JAG, it's one of those programs, Jobs for American Graduates, and that we provide the mentorships, we provide the exposures to jobs that are in manufacturing so that they see that there is a different way. And I think that's so important. Bus to School is one of the big programs that the Chamber supports, where it's getting students to companies and seeing what there actually is, and then how do you help them to be able to achieve. And I think that's so important. I think everybody's seen, but especially in Louisville, some of the statistics that are out there. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to these rural areas. It's right here in our cities. And how do we help support, make those change?
Really impactful. Thank you. Jean West, if you could unmute if you're not already. Jean? Well, she was interested in the vehicles that you showed in the first video clip, of how you find those or if they're available.
Oh, yeah, that's, I would go to the Go Baby Go website.
Go Baby Go. Okay.
Yeah, so it's, and definitely, because Toyota built 100 of them, but our big contribution with Go Baby Go is making it to where they have good instructions that anybody can do it. You don't have to be an engineer to build one of these vehicles. That can really make it to where anybody can be able to build these. So across the country, that people can build these for their loved ones that might have that special need.
Susan, you've been really inspiring. We really appreciate your time. Rotarians, anybody else have a question or want to share with Susan?
I have a question, Julie.
Sure, Fred.
I tried to enter my chat, but for some reason, technology prevented me from, or maybe my lack of STEM education prevented me from forwarding. Susan, thank you so much for your leadership and for being here today. My question related to EVs, electric vehicles, and Toyota, as all manufacturers are transitioning to an all-electric future. What do you know anything at this point early enough about the changes that might come to the Georgetown plant, or what you're doing to get ready for that? Can you elaborate on any of that?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Toyota is maybe taking a little different approach than some of the other companies. We feel that we need to have a whole portfolio based on, so our consumers can have the best option for them. Everybody says, oh, I want an electric vehicle, but then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I can't drive there. I have to go and charge my vehicle and I have to do all these things. So we want to make sure we have the right products for the right people. And so that includes our hybrids, our plug-in hybrids, our full electric vehicles, and then also we have our fuel cell, our hydrogen vehicles that are continuing to expand also. So we want to make sure we have a full portfolio about really what's the right thing to do. And, and as we really want to work to get to where we're carbon neutral, and I think that's what everybody's goal should be, is not necessarily one particular technology. Our goal is to be carbon neutral and to minimize the impact on our environment. So with that being said, here at our plant in Kentucky, I am not at the point to make any announcements. However, I just want to be very upfront that we are studying changes that are necessary and that what we need to do in both in our powertrain facilities and also in our vehicle plants to be able to produce these products for our future, because we know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a transition phase, but we have to be ready whenever it's time for us to be able to do those technologies. And if you haven't seen, Toyota's announcement with our Lexus and our Toyota for our BZ vehicles, which is Beyond Zero, and other products, please go visit our website.
Great. Any other questions for Susan? Well, on behalf of everyone here, just thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about Toyota. And then for you personally, you're not just leading Toyota, you are such an impactful person for our state and very involved and serving on a number of boards, Susan. So thank you so much for your leadership and really investing in not only the opportunities, economic opportunities, but our educational opportunities and making an impact on our citizens. So it's just so appreciated, and thank you. So Rotarians, please join me in a round of applause for Susan, and thank you again. And please come back. We would love to have you anytime.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Well, in closing, we just want to remind everyone that next week's meeting will be focusing with starting Rotarian Abby Drain, President and CEO of 7 County Services. You'll recall also that the governor and Secretary Berry, when they were talking with us a few weeks ago, they really highlighted AppHarvest. So we're delighted to have the CEO of AppHarvest coming, the founder, Jonathan Webb, will be presenting AppHarvest, creating America's ag tech capital from within Appalachia. So consider who you might want to invite for that meeting. And in closing, any guests, if you'd like to know more about the Rotary Club of Louisville, please stay on the line for What is Rotary. Everyone, it was great to be with you today. Be well, and we'll see you next week. We're adjourned.